A building constructed almost entirely of white marble could easily have appeared cold and foreboding, but the lush groves and gardens surrounding it, as well as the friendly faces of the clerics that moved about the grounds, made it warm and inviting. But in the alleys behind the temple grounds the scene was not so well groomed. Here the destitute awaited the benevolence of passers-by, begging for healing or food. Today there had to be at least 30 people on this one street alone, in various states of sickness and desperation. "Excuse me, miss," said a young girl no older than Tadalin. Her dress was more holes than cloth, and so filthy that Tadalin was sure it would fall apart with one washing. "Can I help you?" Tadalin asked, straightening up. "Do you need to be healed?" "No, I am well for now. Thank you kindly," the girl said. She clutched a grey shawl about her that reminded Tadalin more of a fishnet. "Are you the one they speak of in the marketplace? The one who wants to banish the good dragons?" Tadalin opened her mouth to confirm, but Elric caught her eye and shook his head slightly. Could it be a trap? Tadalin looked around and saw that no one else was watching them. Either they were still pestering Rogan and Rama for steel, or accepting Elric's food gratefully. "I am," Talon said warmly, patting an upturned barrel beside her. "What would you like to know?" "Well, the silver dragons protected us during the war. I guess I don't understand how you can call all dragons evil," the girl said, sitting on the barrel and drawing her knees up to her chest. That was a comment Talon heard often. "What's your name?" she asked. "Carly." "Well, Carl, do you know where the first dragons came from?" Carly shook her head. "Riarx forged them from iron, copper, nickel, lead, and tin. Paladine and Tahikis gave them life, but the dragons were rebellious, and Tahikis turned them against Paladine. The metals became tarnished, the nickel turning green, the iron red with rust, the copper blue, the lead black, the tin brittle white. Thus the chromatic dragons were born, and have served Tahikis ever since." "I didn't know that," said Carly. "I thought they were always those colors." Talon nodded and continued her story. "Paladine missed his children and had Riarx forge them anew, this time from gold, silver, bronze, brass, and copper. The copper had been the most reluctant to turn against Paladine, so he gave it a second chance. Not that they deserved it." Talon could not keep the bitterness from her voice. "So far they haven't turned against Paladine." "But they might," Carl said. "Is that what you believe?" "Anything is possible," Talon said. "Even if they don't turn, they can be possessed. That's what happened to the copper dragon that killed my brother." Linda closed her eyes, willing the tears to stay back. They did this time. "They could," Carl agreed. "But I don't think they should be banished from Creighton for something that may not happen." Before Talon could open her mouth to argue, the girl was gone, flitting down the street like a spirit. She ducked down an alley and vanished from sight. Elred walked over to Talon. "You took a big risk telling her that. She won't come with us." He walked with Talon as she approached a little boy on a dirty blanket, whose leg had a festering sore. "No, but it doesn't matter," she said as she laid one hand on the wound and held her medallion of faith with the other. "We aren't going to get anyone here who agrees with us." Talon shook her head, wishing she knew how to convince these people. "The metallic dragons are just as dangerous as the chromatic ones. Without the metallic dragons, we wouldn't have to worry about draconians." Elred said nothing, but nodded, not meeting Talon's eyes. Talon never knew the details of why Elred followed the heirs of Huma, but she knew that his parents had been killed, and somehow both the Silver Dragon and draconians had been involved. Talon had never seen a draconian, but she feared them deeply. She even had nightmares of being attacked by the monsters that had grown up to be the dragons had their essences not been twisted out of good dragon's eggs. "Things were just better before the dragon's return," Talon said, looking up past the dingy walls to the blue sky. The little boy thanked Talon and ran off, yelling something about finding his mother. "Why does no one understand that?" "Strange words you speak, child," came the raspy voice of an old man who Talon was sure hadn't been standing right next to her a moment ago. He was cleaner than most they had seen here, and as soon as Talon saw his white robes, she knew why. He was a cleric, probably from the temple. Was he here to help the residents of the alley, or rebuke Talon and her friends for combining recruiting with healing? "Do you know who else returned at the same time as the dragons?" who was also viewed with suspicion?" the man asked, coming closer. He reached out towards Talin's throat. Elred tensed, but she shook her head slightly, and Elred backed off. The man touched the figure H-shaped medallion of Mishkael that Talon wore. "Mishkael," the old man said, answering his own question. Many people did not believe she and her consort Paladine meant good tidings for the people of Krynn. The man sat down on a discarded fruit cake across from Talon, folding his legs under him. He seemed rather limber for one so aged. It was good fortune that people learned to trust them so quickly, Talon said. The man laughed. "My dear, you should have seen the skepticism the early clerics endured. Fear, anger, accusation of witchcraft. Had the war not caused so much desperation, we would have faced an even longer battle to be accepted." "But now we are accepted," Talon said, glancing back towards the temple. "As a healer, I seek to banish what evil I can from this land." "Yes, I heard your speech. You speak remarkably well for one so young." Talon blushed at the compliment, though she felt undeserving of it. "I didn't convince anyone today, but I had to try. It's the only way to honor my brother and the plan that Mishkael has for me." "The plan?" the cleric said. Talon bit her tongue. Few clerics believed her when she spoke of the message she had received, unless they too had been harmed by the metallic dragons. However, seeing only open curiosity and concern in the old man's eyes, she decided to tell him. "A year ago, I entered this temple to become an acolyte. There was a great lady who spoke at our initiation, Lady Chrysania." The old man nodded. "I know her well." "Do you?" Perhaps this man would be more inclined to believe her mission after all. "I had hoped to speak with her during this visit, but I was told she was gone on a mission. No one would tell me the details of where she went." "It is a mission she believes to be of utmost importance, much like your own." Talon lost all reservations about the cleric. "I wished very much to speak with her. At the acolyte ceremony she gave a speech about eradicating evil from the land. I wanted to be more than a healer. In the temple I prayed to Mishkael to give me a mission. As I stood in line with the other acolytes, a brightly colored sunbeam caught my eye. It came from a stained glass window depicting Hama battling Taesis." "I know that window," the cleric said. "It was donated to the church by an old Salamic family." Talon barely heard the man, so engrossed was she in her own story. "As I looked at the window, I was overcome with a strong feeling that surely came from Mishkael herself. My mission as a cleric of Mishkael is to rid the world of dragons, so that the tragedy that beheld my brother and the thousands of others will never happen again. Thus the heirs of Huma was born." "A very powerful story," the cleric said. "I am not surprised that you attract so many followers. None of them citizens of Palanthas," Talon silently noted. "Would you join us?" Talon asked, surprising herself. She had never worded the question that boldly to anyone. The man smiled and shook his head. "As you have your mission, I have mine. My place is here with this church." He looked toward the temple, then back to the alley, "and here with these people." Talon didn't feel rebuffed. This man had his own calling, as she had hers. The two stood. "May I presume to give you a piece of advice, young lady?" the cleric asked. "Of course," Talon said. "Don't let the grief of your brother become anger." The man looked around the alley. It was still crowded, but no one, not even Elred, was watching them. "The family that donated that window also gave us this. I think you should have it." The cleric reached into a deep pouch and drew out a small object. He placed it in Talon's arm. Palm. It was a broken piece of tarnished jewelry that looked as though it had been star-shaped, but half of the jewel had been broken away. Although the silver setting was black with age, the gems studded it glittered like fire in the setting sun. "I can't accept this," Talon gasped. "Please sell it and use it for the church." The cleric smiled and shook his head. "We couldn't sell something like this. Legend has it that Huma himself once possessed this gem. I can think of no better person to possess it now. Keep it, and may you always be led by the same forces that led Huma." The cleric closed Talon's fingers over the jeweled object. "I must go. I have much to attend to this evening. I suggest that you and your friends leave this city swiftly, before you're found." He walked in the direction of the temple. "Wait!" Talon said, running after the man. You know so much about me, and I don't even know your name. You may have heard of me, the cleric said, pushing a jutted stone in the temple wall and revealing a hidden passage back into the temple. My name is Elliston. The head of the Church of Paladine winked at her, then ducked into the temple grounds, closing the door behind him before Talon could close her gaping mouth. And that is the end of Chapter 1. Bye!